what's something people don't know about the quiet town of Tewkesbury, England? It harbored a house full of dark secrets. Nestled in an ordinary street in a quiet town stood a house full of pain and evil. This was the home of Eunice Spry, a woman who had become synonymous with cruelty and deceit. Behind her seemingly normal facade lurked a monster who inflicted unimaginable suffering upon the children entrusted to her care.
Living with her was like being in a nightmare you couldn't wake up from, one of her children later revealed.
This is the story of her crimes, the bravery of those who dared to speak out, and the devastating impact of abuse that echoed far beyond the walls of her home. The investigation into Eunice Spry's actions sent shockwaves through the community and beyond. It served as a chilling reminder that evil can often hide in plain sight, masked by an appearance of normalcy and respectability. The case would expose the darkest corners of human nature and the urgent need for vigilance in protecting the vulnerable. Eunice Spry's capacity for cruelty, some would argue, stemmed from a childhood marred by neglect and emotional turmoil. Born in 1941, her early years were spent in Tewkesbury. Details about her parents and siblings remain shrouded in mystery, but accounts from those who knew her paint a picture of a troubled young woman. Some whispered about a lack of warmth and affection in her upbringing, suggesting that she herself had been denied the love and care that every child deserves. This troubled past, however, does not excuse her actions. Instead, it adds a layer of complexity to her story, a reminder that cycles of abuse can be perpetuated across generations. It is within this context that Eunice Spry's own story as a mother begins, a story that would take a sinister turn and leave an indelible mark on the lives of 3 innocent children.
Living with her was like being trapped in a never-ending nightmare, one of her children later reflected. The sadness and fear were constant companions.
Eunice Spry's journey into motherhood began with the adoption of 3 children. Initially, she presented herself as a loving and devoted mother, eager to provide a nurturing home for her adopted children. Neighbors recalled seeing her pushing a pram, a seemingly content smile on her face. She attended church regularly, her children always impeccably dressed and well-behaved. Behind this carefully constructed facade, however, a darker reality was beginning to unfold. Eunice's behavior towards her children gradually shifted from loving to controlling, her discipline escalating from strict to downright cruel. The children, once vibrant and full of life, became withdrawn and fearful, their once bright eyes now clouded with a sadness that spoke volumes.
We used to think those early days were filled with love, Victoria recalled, but now we see it was all a deceptive illusion.
As Eunice Spry's grip on her children tightened, so too did the concern from those around her. Neighbors noticed the children's increasingly disheveled appearance, their clothes often dirty and torn. They witnessed Eunice's harsh punishments, her voice echoing with anger as she berated the children for the smallest of infractions. Teachers too observed a marked change in the children's behavior. Once eager participants in class, they became withdrawn and quiet, their academic performance plummeting. One teacher, Mrs. Jones, recalled,
Victoria used to be such a bright and bubbly girl, but she became increasingly withdrawn and seemed constantly afraid. I remember asking her if everything was all right at home, but she just looked down at her feet and shook her head.
Every day felt like walking on eggshells, one of Eunice's children later revealed. We never knew what would set her off. The tension in the house was unbearable, another child added. We lived in constant fear. The turning point came when Victoria, unable to bear the abuse any longer, confided in a trusted teacher about the horrors she and her siblings endured at home. Her words, whispered through tears of pain and fear, painted a chilling picture of physical, emotional, and non-stop abuse that sent shockwaves through the school and the authorities. The subsequent investigation uncovered a horrifying catalogue of abuse spanning over a decade. Eunice Spry's reign of terror involved beatings with belts and sticks, force-feeding until the children vomited, and forcing them to consume their own vomit. She would lock them in cupboards for days on end, denying them food, water, and even the use of a toilet. The children were also forced to stand for hours, sometimes days, until their legs gave out. One of Eunice's children later said, "Every day felt like a nightmare we couldn't wake up from. The pain, the fear, it was all consuming." Their heartbreaking experiences serve as an important reminder of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable cruelty. As the investigation deepened, the full extent of Eunice Spry's depravity became horrifyingly clear. Her house, once thought to be a haven of love and care, was exposed as a prison where she exerted absolute control over every aspect of her children's lives. The discovery of diaries kept by the children revealed the true extent of their suffering, their words a heartbreaking testament to the abuse they endured. When the police finally entered the house, they found the children in a state of severe neglect and fear, huddled together in dark, cluttered rooms. The community, once oblivious to the horrors that unfolded behind closed doors, was left reeling in shock and disbelief. How could someone they thought they knew be capable of such monstrous acts? The case became a chilling reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that evil can lurk even in the most unexpected of places. One of Eunice Spry's children said, "We lived in constant fear. Every day was a nightmare we couldn't escape." The investigation into Eunice Spry's crimes also raised uncomfortable questions about the role of the community. Eunice Spry subjected her foster children to horrific abuse, including forcing them to eat their own vomit and scrub their skin with sandpaper. Had there been signs that were missed, opportunities to intervene that were overlooked? While some neighbors maintained that they had no idea about the abuse taking place, others admitted to having suspicions but were hesitant to get involved. The case highlighted the dangers of silence and the collective responsibility to protect children from harm. It underscored the importance of speaking up when something seems amiss, even if it means confronting uncomfortable truths or challenging those in positions of authority. The severity of Spry's actions left deep emotional and physical scars on her victims, a stark reminder of the impact of unchecked abuse. One of Spry's children reflected, "We lived in constant fear, but we hoped someone would see our pain and help us. The silence was the hardest part to bear." The physical and emotional scars inflicted upon the children ran deep. Robbed of their childhoods and forced to endure unimaginable cruelty, they faced an uphill battle to rebuild their lives. The trauma manifested itself in different ways: nightmares, flashbacks, difficulty trusting others, and an overwhelming sense of fear and anxiety. Their stories serve as an imperative reminder of the long-lasting impact of child abuse.
"There were days when the sadness felt like a heavy blanket, suffocating us," one of the children recalled. "But we found strength in each other and in the hope for a better future."
It is a reminder that the journey to healing is often long and arduous, requiring immense courage, resilience, and unwavering support. Despite the horrors they endured, the victims displayed remarkable strength and resilience. They found their voices, sharing their stories with the world and demanding justice for the crimes committed against them. Their courage in speaking out not only ensured that Eunice Spry was held accountable for her actions, but also gave hope and strength to countless other survivors of abuse. "We found hope in each other and in the support of those who believed in us," said Victoria. "Our voices, once silenced by fear and intimidation, became a powerful force for change, inspiring others to break the cycle of abuse and create a safer world for children." In 2007, after a lengthy trial that captivated the nation, Eunice Spry was found guilty on 26 charges, including child cruelty and assault. The judge, describing her as sadistic, cruel, and a serious risk to children, sentenced her to 14 years in prison. The verdict brought a sense of closure and justice from the victims and the community. "This is a resolute moment for us," one of her victims said, her voice filled with emotion. "We can finally begin to heal." However, it also served as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and the need for a system that protects children from abuse. The legacy of these crimes is a complex one. It's a story of unimaginable cruelty and the devastating impact of abuse. But it is also a story of justice-served resilience and the power of speaking out. The perpetrator once lived a life of isolation in prison, marked by a lack of remorse and continued denial of their heinous actions. Despite attempts to appeal the sentence, justice remained firm, ensuring the full term was served. The prison environment was harsh, reflecting the severity of the crimes, and the perpetrator remained a figure of infamy within the prison walls. After her release, Eunice Spry continued to live in infamy. Tragically, one of her children took their own life years later, unable to escape the shadows of the past. As Eunice Spry's children once said, "In the face of darkness we found light within ourselves. Our strength and unity have become our guiding stars." By working together, we can create a world where children are safe, valued, and free from the threat of abuse.